Trust the process is broken advice, and here's why. There's a point in manifestation when you feel like you've done everything right. You've set the intention, you've visualized it, you've felt aligned, and for a moment, it actually feels like it's working. You feel clearer, calmer, more certain, more connected to what you want. And sometimes you even start to see small signs appearing in your reality, subtle shifts, things that feel like confirmation that something is moving in the right direction. And then it all changes. The movement slows down, the clarity starts to fade, and your confidence starts to wither away. What once felt like certain now feels like slightly unstable. And in some cases, it doesn't just slow down or stop altogether. It feels like it's starting to move in the opposite direction. Situations become more complicated. Emotions become more intense. Things that felt aligned suddenly don't feel so easy anymore. And that's when the questions start to surface. What is going on? What am I doing wrong? Why isn't this working? Not always loudly, not always dramatically, but quietly in the background of your thinking. Because you know you've done the work, you understand the principles, you've applied what you've learned. So when it doesn't unfold the way that you expect it to, it creates a kind of internal shift. If you've ever felt that gap between knowing and receiving, make sure to subscribe to this channel, because this is exactly what I break down in this channel. Not surface level manifestation, but what's actually happening underneath. Here's the part no one explains properly. What most people assume, manifestation should be linear. You decide what you want, you align with it, and then boom, it just appears. That's the model most people are working with, even if they don't realize it. So when reality doesn't follow that path, it feels like something has gone wrong. But that's not what's actually happening. And the reason it feels like it's not working or that it's going wrong is because you're measuring it against the wrong model. You see, the reason this becomes so confusing is because, well, most people are unknowingly applying a simple cause and effect model that to something that doesn't actually operate in the same way. We're taught that if you do the right things, then you should get the right result. Create the vision board, repeat the affirmations, follow the steps, and the outcome should follow, right? But manifestation does not respond to what you do in isolation. It responds to who you are becoming while you're doing it. It's important to realize that there is a profound difference between performing actions in the hope of creating a result and embodying the identity that already holds that result as natural. One is effort-based and often driven by lack. The other is state-based and grounded in alignment. This is why two people can follow the exact same process and principles and experience completely different outcomes, because the underlying principle is not just cause and effect. It's about coherence, and coherence is not created through doing more, but through becoming more aligned with the version of you for whom the outcome is already a stable reality. Therefore, manifestation is not just about intention, it's about integration. And this is where most people get caught out, because integration is not something that you can see directly. It's something you feel through shifts in your internal state. When you identify a desire, especially one that expands you beyond your current reality, your system doesn't instantly stabilize into it. Your nervous system responds first, and your nervous system is not wired to give you what you want. It's wired to keep you confined within what feels safe, familiar, and known. So when your desire sits outside of that, there's a gap, and that gap has to be bridged. That bridging process is what most people experience as things not working or going their way. Because from the outside, it doesn't look like progress. It looks like doubt, emotional triggers, things slowing down, things even moving in the opposite direction. But from the inside, something very specific is happening. Your system is recalibrating, or more precisely, these signs are inviting your nervous system to upgrade, to recalibrate. And recalibration doesn't just feel like instant expansion, it feels like adjustment. An adjustment can be very daunting to the nervous system. This is where almost everyone misinterprets what's happening. They assume discomfort means misalignment. Stillness means nothing is happening. Emotional intensity means they're doing something wrong. So what do? They pull back. They start questioning. They start questioning themselves. They second guess their decisions. They lose confidence. They lose the certainty they once had in the beginning, and without even realizing it, they interrupt the very process that was starting to unfold. But what if this isn't failure? Think about this. What if these signs are part of the process that no one has been shown how to recognize before? Because what feels like pause or delay or even setback or challenge is often a phase that requires recalibration. It's the point where your internal state is being brought into alignment with something it hasn't yet stabilized into. And without understanding that, it feels unpredictable. It feels inconsistent. It feels like something that works sometimes and not others. But it's not random. You see, there is a pattern unfolding. I didn't come to this conclusion through theory alone. I came to it through observation and journaling. Over 13 years of tracking my own manifestations and later observing the patterns across hundreds of others, I started to notice the same sequence repeating. The emotional shifts, the same phases of expansion and contraction, the same moments of certainty followed by uncertainty. At first, it didn't make sense. It felt disconnected, even contradictory. But over time, a structure began to emerge. What people describe as ups and downs are not random fluctuations. They are consistent stages of recalibration. And once you see that, everything changes. Because instead of asking, why isn't this working? You start asking, what is actually happening right now? And that question leads you somewhere completely different. It gets you thinking differently, because manifestation isn't something that either works or doesn't work. It's something that unfolds through a sequence, through stages, through shifts that don't always look like what you expect them to. And this is why the middle of the process feels so difficult. Most teachings focus on the beginning, setting the intention, and the end, receiving the outcome. But very few explain what's happening in between. And that in between is where most people lose belief. Not because nothing is happening, but because they don't know how to interpret what they're experiencing. Without a framework, uncertainty gets misread as failure. Silence gets interpreted as nothing's working. And natural stages of recalibration feel like resistance or blockage. But when you start to understand that there is a structure beneath all of this, something amazing shifts. You stop reacting to every change in emotion or circumstance as if it means something is going wrong. You start observing instead. You start recognizing patterns. You start seeing that what feels uncomfortable is not necessarily incorrect, because change is always uncomfortable for the nervous system. And that's where a different stability begins to form. Not the kind of stability that comes from controlling outcomes, but the kind that comes from understanding the process. And this is also where signs start to make more sense. Numbers, animals, synchronicities, because signs are not random. They are not coincidences. They are feedback. They are indicators of what's happening beneath the surface. They reflect shifts that you cannot yet see physically. When you begin to track them, patterns emerge. Certain signs appear at certain phases. Emotional shifts align with specific stages. What once felt disconnected starts to make perfect sense. And this is exactly why I created the manifestation tracking app, because it allows you to log those signs and start seeing the patterns for yourself instead of guessing. You start recognizing. And when you can recognize what's happening, belief stabilizes, because belief is not sustained through blind trust. It is sustained through evidence. And this is where the idea of trust starts to change. Change on its own is unstable. It asks you to hold a position without confirmation, often in the face of contradictory evidence, and your subconscious will always override that if it doesn't feel safe. But when trust is supported by understanding, it becomes grounded, it becomes rational, and it becomes something that you can actually hold, because you're no longer guessing, you're navigating. And this is the shift that changes everything, specifically what you believe. You stop waiting for manifestation to happen and you start recognizing how it is already happening. You begin to see that every stage has a function. Every emotional shift, every perceived delay, every sign is part of the process that is moving you towards better alignment. Instead of asking, why isn't this working? You start asking, what stage am I in? What signs can I see? And what can I recalibrate right now? And that question puts you back in the position of awareness and ultimately control. Because manifestation was never about sitting back and hoping. It's about participating in a system that is constantly responding to you. And once you see that system more clearly, trust is no longer something that you have to force. It becomes a natural byproduct of understanding. If this is resonating with you, make sure you subscribe so that you can continue to understand manifestation at a deeper, structured, more profound level. If you're ready to go further, you can explore my 6-month coaching program where I guide you through this entire process step by step. And if you want to start recognizing your own patterns in real time, you can explore the Genie Manifestation Tracker app below. And in the next video, I'm going to take this one step further and break down something very specific, why manifestation gets worse before it gets better. And if you've got any questions about manifestation or any comments about this video, please drop it below. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.